Hello and welcome. I'm Malena from Cake.com, and with us today is Michail Kollewijn, founder and CEO of Transcre8. We will be talking about the challenges of the self-publishing and translation industries and how Pumble simplified the agency's communication. Thank you, Michail, for joining us today. I'll just give the mic. Yeah, I'll give the mic to you and ask you to tell us about the company, the industry that that Transcre8 is operating in. What do you do, and what's your vision and mission?
Sure. Thank you very much. Well, Transcre8 was founded a year and a half ago as a translation localization service provider with initially a focus on digital marketing content, digital publishing, e-learning materials, blockchain-related translations, which coincided with the release of generative AI into the marketplace. And it proved quite difficult to find a footing at the time with large commercial clients. So halfway through that period of time, we pivoted away and we created a platform called PublishMe, which is designed to support self-published authors with their foreign language publications, translations, and book marketing, which has now become our primary focus. So we take authors from most Central European markets and the North American market specifically, and we translate their books or series. For some, we also do the publishing. So we've merged into being a translation provider as well as a publisher. And what we've learned along the way is that effective marketing in foreign language markets is very, very difficult for self-published authors, them being small enterprises themselves. If they don't speak the target language, then we provide marketing solutions for them as well.
Yeah, I know that it's very hard in your native language, but let alone when it comes to translations. So it's the digital publications, right, that you deal with?
Primarily digital. I mean, we still offer paperbacks, sometimes hardcovers of the books. But during COVID, there was a massive surge in digital books being consumed, which has now kind of receded a little bit because people still do like to have a physical copy available. But the same can be said for a trend in publishing, moving away from traditional publishers, that self-publishers are no longer frowned upon, but they are starting to make up a bulk of the author community. And a lot of seasoned self-publishers are also moving away from trying to find traditional publishers to take their books because it gives them a lot more control over their earnings, over their publications, etc. And we foresee in the next 10 years that digital publications will take the upper hand and a larger percentage of the market.
I'm curious now. What's the genre that maybe is the most popular at the moment, or if
that really varies by country.
Mm-hmm.
We aim to also use data that we collect in each target market to, in future, advise authors based on the genre that they have, which foreign language market is most attractive to them. In the Nordic countries of Europe, you have thrillers and crime novels in first place, including in Germany. Quickly followed by romance is a go-to everywhere, and then it follows with fantasy, business books, self-help books, etc., etc. But every country has kind of a different distribution of preferences when it comes to that. So France is widely different to Germany. Italy is different to France again, and there's surprisingly little data available on that. I mean, there's some through companies like Statista that collate statistics, etc., but it's not really conclusive. And trends change as well because the advertising models have drastically changed through COVID, where TikTok and Instagram became the major book promotion platforms, let's say.
Yeah, Book Talk is very popular. I know,
Book
like
Talk,
the shelves, there's a separate section in each library now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas at the time there was a few individuals that were very successful within that because they were the first. Now everyone has a Book Talk account or a Bookstagram account. So it's diluting a little bit, but it gives a much wider reach. And so for marketing, using book bloggers is a big go-to, and that's called building relationships painstakingly. Because unlike in the States, in Europe, with the data protection laws, you can't just send out a mass email indiscriminately to anyone. They have to consent to it, or have published email addresses, etc., etc. So it's a bit more to navigate. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting industry, and seeing the trends change is fascinating as well. They're very fickle.
All right, thank you. So what would be the profile of your customers, or like what would you then like kind of summarize? What are the services that you're offering now? Because obviously it has changed.
It's twofold. The primary customer is obviously the author, with a focus on self-publishers. And there's not really a segmentation that we primarily aim for. At the moment, majority of them are within the romance or fantasy genres. Some are thriller as well. We'd like to break into self-help books, motivational books, business books as well, because they always do very well, and they're very sought after. But the other part of our customer market, being a publisher now as well, is obviously the reader. And with the reader, depending on the genre, depending on the author, the age demographic changes slightly. And so at the moment, one of the big challenges is separating the two from a brand perspective, facing outwards, to have the customer that needs a service or one of our services to publish books or translate books, and then the reader that we want to purchase them. So it's a bit of a challenge to untangle the two sides on the same brand platform, let's say, but we're slowly getting there.
All right, but obviously it's no easy feat, and you can never separate the two completely, right? Because they rely on each other there. So they
rely on each other, and I mean, to kind of summarize our mission or our vision, we would like to become, or we aim to become, the go-to platform for self-publishers that offers a very affordable and approachable, personalized, all-in-one service for foreign language publications. Because at the moment, to give an example, the German market is quite well structured when it comes to infrastructure for self-publishers, in terms of platforms that offer book marketing, that offer mailing lists, that offer an outreach to bookstores, etc., etc. But a lot of them are quite pricey as well. And book translations in themselves, especially for larger books, they get very expensive very quickly, which can be forbidding for self-published authors, unless they are doing very well, unless they're an Amazon bestseller or USA Today bestseller, and they have 20, 30, 40 books published. It becomes very difficult otherwise to afford translations, especially through agencies that have a quality assurance element with them. So a lot of them choose to use freelancers, but with freelancers, even though there's a lot of very, very good freelancers in the market, it's much harder to do quality assurance. And then, like I said, the rest is the marketing element. But markets like France drag probably a decade behind Germany when it comes to book marketing infrastructure. Italy is solely reliant, it seems, on Amazon ads and Facebook groups. So they don't have a centralized platform that offers, mailing list services, that offers outreach, etc., etc. And so what we are trying to do is to not only offer those services at an affordable entry-level price, but to also pair them with marketing and blogger outreaches to ensure a successful book launch for authors, a successful increase of book sales, and to reach a wider audience. So it's becoming a very interesting hybrid. It's very far away from where we started, but it's becoming quite clear where we're heading.
It kind of gives me hope because I myself have like a translating background. I come from a family of translators, and I've done it before. And I know it's not easy because I was a freelancer, and I know what's it like. And to kind of you got to have an editor, at least a proofreader, like hopefully, and that conversation that has to happen with the author who might not speak the language or have their own idea of how it should sound, and it's just. It's wonderful for myself, like with my experience, to kind of hear that there's someone else who can take care of that. That kind of holds the reins, and you can just like kind of clock and do your work, and then don't fret about the other elements, rather than having all of it on you, which is the joy of such agencies, I guess, like yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of other service providers that do very good work when it comes to translations, but there's hardly any that offer marketing services that kind of accompany the author once a translation is. And I mean, we also have plenty of authors that work with us that want to retain control over their books fully and don't publish for us, which is perfectly fine, but we still offer to support them with a marketing outreach, with newsletter campaigns, blogger outreaches, etc.
All right, so it's kind of tailored, right? Bundles, but tailored, like the different degrees of like who wants what. Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty good.
I mean, it's difficult to do bundles. Like we're moving into that direction. We're soon releasing a new website, a new structure. But unlike a service like Pumble that can offer very clear tailored packages that a customer can choose from, and you can automate the sign-up process and the utilization of a platform. If you have your life's passion in a book or in a series, then we can't fully automate that onboarding process, because there's still the necessity of a very personalized service conversation to understand the needs of the author, the pain points, and then to offer a tailor-made solution. So it can sometimes deviate quite widely from what we would be able to advertise on a website as a service to then what it actually ends up being for the author, because it's individual.
Yeah, but that's what I think maybe sounds appealing, because there's an offer of structure, and then but then the space for like creativity, and there's flexibility, which I think for creatives is, well, for everyone, but it's creatives especially is of the utmost importance, right? Because you can't have like creativity and inflexibility. It kind of contradicts each other. Yeah. So that's why I mean, if it's, I guess that would be the difference with like comparison to Pumble, like, because this is a means of like connecting with the team, and we'll get to that. Whereas your mission and vision is quite different, I guess, in that regard. Yeah. And speaking, so we kind of, I think we got into a nice segue too. So what would you say? You said that you've been in existence for a year and a half, correct?
Yes.
What inspired the creation of the company, of the agency? Like,
well, like you, I was a freelance translator and a freelance proofreader for quite some time. I had a completely different background before, but I kind of fell into it, being a digital nomad, and that was going very well. But after a while, I was managing at an agency, teams of freelancers, clients, etc. And then I had a disagreement with the leadership in terms of work culture and processes. And I guess at some point I just grew tired of having to dance to someone else's tune, and decided to create my own company so that I could dictate a positive work environment and a sort of philosophy and approach to servicing clients and what I wanted to do. And like I said, initially, the intention was to go more in the direction of corporate. corporate clients, but we eventually pivoted halfway through last year. So PublishMe as a platform and as a service is not quite a year old. It's approaching 9 months now. And that was born from me working as a proofreader for a couple of authors and seeing the varying degrees of quality in translations that they received back from freelancers. You know, some were really outstanding and needed almost no editing, and others I could tell were run straight through DeepL, returned, got paid for, and had to be redone completely. We do still service some corporate clients, but it's not the major focus or the centerpiece of our work anymore today.
Okay, and the corporate clients is more translation, right? And transcreation,
corporate clients
right?
is more translation, but also because quite a few of them are coming from a marketing background. We would call it transcreation, hence also the initial name of Transcre8, which is a fairly newly coined term in marketing translations, where you can't translate a marketing slogan. You have to recreate it, target language, or sometimes even within the same language in a different area. You know, what would work in Berlin wouldn't work elsewhere in Germany, let alone Switzerland. And that's what transcreation refers to. So a lot of marketing content has to be recreated or transcreated. And so it's not a straight translation as you would have for a birth certificate or a contract. And then with book translations or a creative translation, it's is what you would refer to as localization, which you know, I'm sure, from a background of being a translator yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I found there's just a slight difference. I guess for me, those were the same. I would say localization and transcreation would be the same, but I'm getting the idea behind it. I've never called them as such, but that's another thing.
Sure.
But I'm curious about one thing.
Differentiate between them. Sorry to interrupt you. No, we would differentiate between them because localization also, I mean, it's cultural adaptation. And then, you know, if you have a different metric system, in the US you use Fahrenheit, you would have it as Celsius in Europe, or you would adapt other denominations. And so that's localizing it to a target audience. You use that a lot in gaming as well, where certain things would be either cut out or adapted to a culture, whereas transcreation is specifically referring to marketing content that has to be kind of recreated without losing its core meaning behind it.
Got it. Thanks. I'm curious now, because you also mentioned on the website that I've seen, working with AI content, right? Fact checking and rewriting. And in general, like, is there, because of the recent developments in the AI technology, how has it affected the way you operate?
So far, surprisingly little, in the sense that because with books, you have a lot of creative writing involved. We do use, I mean, every translator uses technology to support their translations, but it should always ever be seen as a blueprint to build on. You know, whatever supportive program someone uses, it can't be relied on. And the difficult thing with AI technology is that quality assurance is still not possible. You know, you can't run an entire book through an AI, even if you can train an AI. So what we're looking at in the future is to training AI language models through the content that we produce or translate to achieve a higher accuracy output result, which simply means that the amount of work involved in reworking a translation or building on that blueprint is less, because the quality is. So you can fairly easily train an AI language model to a specific task such as romance translations or fantasy translations, so that it knows certain keywords and sentence structures, etc., but you can never eliminate the human element of reworking it. So I guess one element where it's changed a little bit for us is that we are pivoting to using more people at the proofreader quality level, as opposed to just translators that then have their work being proofread, to have a good result on the onset. But then we still have another proofreader proofreading the first one to ensure a flawless result. But we're not at a point yet where we can, at large scale, implement AI technology into a translation process. And there's a lot of authors that are also opposed to having their work being translated by AI, which I think will change in the next few years. I mean, at some point, the technology will be good enough. So for us, at the moment, it's not a centerpiece to our work, but it's a focus for the future to not be left on the sidelines so that we can continue providing the service that we do at a quality level, but with the support of technology once it's ready for it.
Okay, so it's on the margins. You're like seeing it, and then you'll see how it works. Yeah. How it'll play into
I mean, also
all.
for large corporations, like I think for very big companies that are successfully using AI language models to service a lot of their translation needs, that works not only because of financial resources to build the necessary infrastructure, but in order to have an AI perform a specific task, you need to feed it quite a bit of background information. And that's difficult to do for a singular marketing campaign to ensure that the AI successfully encompasses everything that it needs. I mean, I can ask ChatGPT to write me an article, but then I have to continuously fine tune it because it simply lacks context. So I think that's why a lot of companies don't use it as efficiently as they could. It's coming more and more into play. Especially with predictive AI. But the other concern that is around AI language models is privacy as well. Like DeepL is a German company, and it's one of the, in my opinion, one of the best translation softwares available on the market, and for legal text, etc., it provides a really, really good output blueprint. But I know firsthand from people in the German Justice Ministry, for example, that they are actually prohibited from translating documents through DeepL because it's an open source program. So at the moment, there's not many closed source programs that I know of that protect the privacy as well. And so I think that'll be a big talking point of it in future. Is not only application and resource management, but also the privacy of the information submitted into it.
Yeah, that's something that people are just now, I think, figuring out. They're still just playing with AI without thought. Not everyone, but the majority. It's like, yeah, put everything in without thinking where it goes and who can access it. So yeah,
right.
It's an important conversation that has yet to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's not enough legal frameworks around protecting copyright. And I don't know if you saw recent changes that Adobe made to their software, where they essentially changed the licensing rights for all users, saying we will now have the right to use your IP as our own. So you can be a creative using Adobe to create imagery, etc., and other companies saying, our new agreements, we can use that indiscriminately as our own, and it's no longer your IP.
Huh.
And so with AI,
I did not see that. Yeah, that's probably like the tiny script.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think professionals need to think really, really hard about how they use those kind of programs and platforms. And to what extent they want to protect their IP, and to what extent they're fine with it being fed into a learning algorithm.
Such a topic. I can go on this, but we are on yes. We have a goal today. But speaking of AI and this is a segue. Bear with me. And actually, people who are working that are actual people. So how many people do you employ and at the moment, right? And is it do you have an office, or is it like everyone's working remotely, hybrid? So what's the situation there?
We're all remote. There's probably at the moment about 15 to 20 team members that we have. It fluctuates a little bit depending on demand for languages. You know, most of them are carefully selected freelancers that we've worked with for a long period of time. We do have a strict quality assurance process when we onboard new team members. But most of them, or all of them, are working remotely. I mean, even our company was started remotely. I'm a digital nomad full time. I have been for the last almost 5 years now. So is my business partner. And depending on language demand, the active team members increase or decrease. But most of them are with us. We try to work with the same ones over long periods of time. And if, say, an author has not just a singular book, but a series that they want to do, or they want to do additional books, we try and always use the same teams, because then they get to know the style, the characters, the storyline, etc., etc. And it also provides long-term stability to team members in terms of income and revenue, which is quite difficult to achieve today because it's such a competitive market space, right? So it fluctuates. Let's put it that way.
Okay, but there's a core of like 15 to 20 people, right? That if I understood you correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the moment, I would say, yeah.
All right. So, thank you for that. So, which kind of brings us then like into the Pumble questions, I'm guessing, or not a guessing, it's a fact. Because everyone's working remotely and from different places, I'm guessing that's one of the challenges that you were trying to overcome when you started searching for solutions that kind of led you to Pumble. This is me assuming, but what else was there?
It was one of two. I mean, having a centralized communications platform is always necessary, and the secondary, at the time, almost more important question that we were trying to find an answer to is price point. You know, I used to work with Slack a lot, as a lot of people do. Surprisingly, I found that in Central Europe, especially Switzerland, for example, Microsoft Teams is the trending platform that everyone was using. But for us, it was price point. And Pumble was a newer platform that offered pretty much the same basic features that Slack was offering for a fraction of the price comparatively. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start scaling a team to beyond 2 to 5 team members, those monthly recurring costs start adding up over the course of a year. And so price point and ease of use were practically the main deciding factors for us to start using Pumble. And because it continued to tick those boxes, we've stuck with it.
That's good. That's good to hear. So did you now tell us that? How did you discover Pumble? Like, how did you run into it?
I think it was a lot of reading blogs and research, like those comparative articles that compare Zapier to Slack to Teams to etc. And eventually Pumble came up. And so then we narrowed down the search on comparing Pumbles with others, reading reviews, and then we did a trial. And we don't need a lot of the fancy features. Like we've optimized a lot of our processes using Google Drive and Sheets, etc. But for groups and channels and work channels, also guest channels for clients, it's very valuable. Beyond that, we don't really use much of the video call features or team call features because it's not necessary at this point in time. Projects are quite insular, like very apologies for that. Very specific to certain things. For the chat, for document sharing, for keeping tabs on progress, etc., Pumble has served us really well, and it continues to be one of the easiest to use and cheapest options that I've seen out there. That has practically everything that the competition offers as well, that I've seen so far. And I'm seeing one question here, why we opted for the Pumble Pro plan, because very simply, it covered what we needed at the time. Anything bigger than that is, we're not at that level at this point, in terms of the offer that you have for it. So,
okay, you found your fit for what you need now, so that's no need to elaborate, absolutely. I guess, like further.
No.
And so you did say like about the features that kind of attracted you to, but were there some features or options that you weren't looking for, or they were not on your mind until you started using Pumble, and then you were like, oh, okay, this makes my life easier? Was there like such a thing?
Not necessarily. I mean, I was used to, like I said, I was used to working with Slack, and Slack has a ton of integrations that you can opt into and use from, work processes, time tracking, etc., etc. But at the same time, when you have a lot of options, it can make it almost more difficult to define a clear work process, if that makes sense,
too many options is like no options sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like to keep things very light and basic, with the idea of less is more, or having a lean business model that makes it easier to pivot and adapt and change, or evolve, which is probably what has helped us facilitate do what we do so far. And so there wasn't really any surprises with Pumble. I guess the guest channels were a nice little addition to our workflow that we didn't anticipate, that make it very easy to invite an author or a group of authors to a certain work channel and have a direct line of communication. What I do realize is that because Pumble is not as established yet as other platforms, for some people it might be just an additional one again. And so it's like when you're messaging with friends and you're replying on Facebook Messenger to then be on WhatsApp and then Telegram, and then you have something else as well. And it's like, why are we having 5 different conversations on as many platforms? But so far it's serviced our needs that are quite basic and straightforward: document sharing, project management, communication primarily, and the rest we use the Google Suite infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, could you walk us through like the process and how Pumble kind of allows the process and supports it? For instance, with the client, if that's okay.
Sure. I mean, as a very brief overview, once negotiations are clear and concluded, and customers are on board, we onboard them to our internal dashboard, for the purpose of making sales reports available each month for the contracts and manuscripts, etc., etc. And then we invite them to a work channel on Pumble, where we introduce relevant team members or project managers that will oversee the project. And for our internal teams, we have language channels. So we have the French team, the Spanish team, or the German team in a respective channel. Marketing is something else that is segregated from it. And then we have a general one that we try to use to create kind of a team atmosphere, you know, where people can just talk amongst themselves, exchange about the day, make jokes, etc., like we do everywhere else, because remote working is insular. And it's probably one of the hardest bridges to overcome in terms of work culture. New people
and team spirit, sort of like feeling like you're working with others.
Yeah. But other than that, it's on a day-to-day, it's primarily sharing documents, talking about timelines, updating people on new developments or a new project coming in. And sometimes it's also being able to just reach everyone at the same time that is most valuable to us. But specifically with a client, it's a dedicated work channel that is separate from our internal ones. And it just it makes it easier as well to I guess mentally compartmentalize what belongs where. Yeah, but that's simply a feature of such a platform. That's not necessarily a standard feature from Pumble, but it's a support that Pumble offers as
but I'm thinking too how a tool may offer these features, but you might not feel so comfortable relying on them. So that's where I guess the difference with the apps maybe comes in, like which ones do you kind of are okay with just kind of dropping it on a channel and leaving it there safely and moving on to something else without kind of freaking out, will it be forgotten?
Right. I mean, there's that, but I think that also comes down to individual organization and how organized the individual is. But it's also good that you guys have an app. It's good and bad. It means work follows me everywhere, but but it also means that you're available everywhere.
We're like Google ads everywhere with you.
All the time. But yeah, I hope that answers your question a little bit.
It does. I think we've we do have these questions, like a standard questionnaire, and I'm looking to see kind of if we covered everything, but I feel like it kind of the answers wove each other, like themselves into the conversation too. But I am curious, so about the time tracking and project management. You said that what are you using for those? Beside like Google Suite?
Well, Google Suite and in certain instances, Clockify. Which is a very easy, free to use, mostly time tracking. But time tracking is also for a lot of what we do, it's not really a necessity because we use certain KPIs in place to ensure that that the teams fall within those, and unless they blow them completely out of the water, if they're within acceptable margin, then I like to also work with a lot of trust because everyone is autonomous. Everyone works for themselves as a freelancer, and everyone also knows the value of providing high quality work within a certain time frame, so the working relationship can continue to exist. Like I said before, with other platforms, having a lot of the add-ons and being super organized, I found that it was kind of getting lost eventually because you have so many things to keep track of, so that the organization that you feel you're creating is in the end just creating more work.
Yeah, you kind of become a slave to it, right? Because then you have to maintain the machinery. So there's like always that balance that you kind of have to walk. Let's see if I've covered everything. So you did mention the channels, the different channels you have on Pumble. What would you say would be your like most like favorite, let's say, or useful channels that you've created?
I mean, all of them have their uses, and most of them are just created based on a use case. Like I said, I like to keep things very lean, but I guess the favorite channel is always the one where everyone can just talk about their day to day, because it's the most approachable and most humane. Where you would congratulate someone to their birthday, etc., because it's one that takes you out from the daily grind. But again, from a leadership perspective, it means that me and my business partner have to put a lot of focus on keeping it alive, because it's, monkey see, monkey do. Otherwise, it doesn't really get used by people because everyone just has enough on their plate to do. But once you're able to create a type of work culture remotely with people that you've worked with for sometimes years and you've never met in person, I think that's always a win.
Yeah, I had that situation where I didn't know even the faces of the people that I was working with in the previous company. But we kind of connected. We wanted to kind of see each other, and I ended up meeting a former colleague from the States. And it was so strange, getting to kind of finally that voice that I've been hearing for 3.5 years through Skype to kind of put it to a person was just. It was. I
met my business partner 2 months before we registered the company for the first time in person.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least you met.
We was in person so far.
Modern times.
We've been for almost 4 years now. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's just strange how times have changed.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So you said, I think you mentioned you were using Slack before you ran into Pumble, right? Correct?
I was using Slack at the old company that I was working with.
Okay. But Transcre8 and PublishMe, you started with Pumble practically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I knew the pricing, and then we tried to do comparative pricing, and so that was in at the end it was the decider. But through that, we've certainly shouted out the Pumble name to plenty of people that we're working with or have worked with over the past year.
Excellent. We are grateful for that. But it's great when you have a good product and you see that other people enjoy it too. That's, I think, the most valuable thing. And word of mouth is the most powerful in the end, at the end of the day. That's my personal opinion. So let's see. I think we covered most of it, so we can kind of slowly wrap it up. But I would like to ask you, how do you see, Transcre8 and PublishMe in the future? And if there are any plans that you'd like to share with us, if that's okay.
I think I've covered most of it already. I mean, what I see with PublishMe the last year is laying a lot of foundational work in terms of creating positive work relationships with the clients that we do have, with the teams that we have. A lot of it was a very, very steep learning curve at every turn. It still is every single day. But it's exciting. And like I said, we're getting a rebrand within the next couple of months. We're getting a brand new website done, a new logo, new color scheme, everything. So I think that'll be one of the most exciting steps forward. That'll really propel the company onto the next stage. It's always, as you know, from working probably with a company like Pumble, when you're starting out against established competitors, it's always a bit difficult at first. So I'm very grateful for the authors that have given us a shot so far. And it's always, no pressure, but you don't want to disappoint. So we try and do our best. But I think the next milestone for us is to simply grow our efficiency and our reach. But the vision is to help as many self-published authors reach as many readers around the world as possible, and for Transcre8 as a company to also expand to additional clients, etc. But that's going to be another revamp in itself. With the new websites further down the track, I think the primary focus at the moment is on books.
All right, all right. You've got a plan. It sounds. I'm excited about it. I'm only guessing like how excited you may feel about it all.
I'm very excited.
I'll be keeping my fingers crossed, definitely for you. All right, really, thank you for your time. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you as well. Have a really good week.
You too. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and follow for more.